With Language3, you will develop the skills you need to actually speak the language.
In today's lesson, we are going to learn how to modify nouns. Just like in English, we use adjectives to modify nouns. We have demonstrative adjectives, possessive adjectives, some adjectives that let's call them general adjectives, and at the end of the lesson, we're going to learn how to shorten some adjectives. Let's begin with demonstrative adjectives. In Spanish, we have a lot of demonstrative adjectives. Let's begin with este and its feminine version, which is esta. Both of them mean just this. This. For example, este carro es rojo. Este carro es rojo. This car is red. We can use esta to say just the same if we have a feminine noun. For example, let's take casa, which is house. We should have to say esta casa es grande. Let's say grande, which is large. Esta casa es grande. If we want to say that, we will have to use ese and esa. Just the same, it will change to match the gender of the noun we are modifying. So in our example, we would say ese carro es rojo, for example. Esa casa es roja, for example. In this case, ese, esa, as we said, will not be this, but that. But in Spanish, we have a third that we use when the thing we're talking about is even further. We have aquel, aquel, and aquella. Again, it will change to match the gender of the noun. So we would have aquel carro es rojo, aquel carro es rojo, and aquella casa es roja. Aquella casa es roja. Again, it means that, but we only use it when the object that we're talking about is even further, okay? Okay, but we have worked so far only with singular. Carro, casa, only singular cases. If we had a plural case, we would have to add an s and to make some changes in some cases. So here, este carro es rojo. The plural version would be estos carros son rojos. Remember, when we studied the verb to be, it has to change to match the number in the sentence. So we would end up with estos carros son rojos. We also would have to say estas casas son grandes. Please notice that I am adding an s at the end of the plural versions. I'm not only changing the demonstrative adjective, but I am adding an s at the end of the general adjective, as we call it. So perfect. We have estos carros, estas casas. In this case, ese carro, esa casa. To build the plural form, would have to say esos carros. Esos carros, again, son rojos. Esos carros son rojos. For the feminine version, we would have esas casas son rojas. Esas casas son rojas. Additionally, if we wanted to use aquel or aquella, the plural version, we would have to say aquellos carros, that remember are even further. Aquellos carros son rojos, and aquellas casas son rojas. So this is what we have with demonstrative adjectives. We have este, esta, both of them this. The plural estos, estas, this. We have ese, esa, which is that. Esos, esas, it means those. And we have also aquel, aquella, that, but that is even further. And aquellos, aquellas, those, again, even further. But the demonstrative adjectives can also be used as pronouns. For example, este es mi carro. Este es mi carro. This is my car. Please notice that the word este is not used as an adjective anymore because it is not modifying any noun. It is the noun, the subject in the sentence. Now, and we can use any demonstrative adjective as a pronoun in any sentence. Let's speak, for example, esas. We would say, esas son mis casas. Esas son mis casas. Those are my houses. It's important to notice here that the words are now not working as adjectives but as pronouns, okay? They are the subjects in their sentences. Okay, so this is one kind of adjectives we have. We have the demonstrative adjectives. But we have another kind of adjectives, the possessive adjectives. In English, we have my, your, etc. What we do in Spanish is, let me put this over here, okay? In Spanish, we have mi, for example, mi casa. We have tu casa, your house. I have su casa. Su casa will be his house or her house. We have no way to know if it is masculine or feminine, but based on context. So, su casa. We have nuestra casa, which is our house. And finally, we have su casa, which is their house, okay, or your house in the plural case. So this is what we have when we talk about possessive adjectives in Spanish. We have mi, tu, su, nuestra, and su in the Latin American case. But additionally, we also have general adjectives, what we called adjectives in general. There are a lot of them in Spanish and in even language, actually. But in Spanish, we use them as an example for talking about nationality, nacionalidad, and for talking about color, okay? We have worked on this already. Let me remind you some examples. Some examples would be Carlos es mexicano. Carlos es mexicano. Carlos is Mexican. Oh, Juan es cubano. For talking about color, we could use more or less the same structure and say just el carro es rojo. Again, now I'm talking about rojo. It's an adjective, it's a general adjective. La casa es grande. Okay. So we'll have a lot of general adjectives. We are going to introduce new adjectives in the future during the course. Right now, let's talk about how to shorten some adjectives that you have to shorten depending on the position of the adjective. So that would be number 4, shortening adjectives. We will work with bueno, which means good, malo, which is the opposite, bad, primero, first, tercero, third, uno, alguno, y ninguno. Alguno, some, ninguno, none. Okay? Bueno, malo, primero, tercero, uno, alguno, y ninguno. What happens with these adjectives is that they will drop the O if we put them before the noun. Let me show you an example. We have, okay, el hombre bueno. The adjective is after the noun, so it keeps the O. But if we change its position, it would drop the O. And we would say, el buen hombre. El buen hombre instead of el hombre bueno. With malo, it happens exactly the same. We would say, el hombre malo. El hombre malo, the bad man. Or el mal hombre. Again, the adjective drops the O if we change the position. With primero, tercero, uno, it happens exactly the same. Let's make an example with uno. Okay, uno. Okay, el jugador uno o el jugador número 1 es Carlos. El jugador 1 es Carlos. Un jugador es Carlos. The meaning here, even the meaning of the sentence changes a little bit. When we have el jugador 1 Carlos, we mean the player number 1 is Carlos. When we say un jugador es Carlos, a player is Carlos. So in some cases, even the meaning of the sentence will change if you put the adjective in front of, or after, or before the noun it is modifying. Finally, let's work on a couple examples with alguno and ninguno. For example, alguno. Generally, we use alguno in this position, okay, before the noun. For example, algún, and you put any noun you want. Let's say algún jugador, some player, or any player depending on the context. Algún jugador jugó mal, let's say. Okay, so some player played bad. We can say ninguno, we can use ninguno also in this position. For example, ningún, remember it drops the O. Ningún jugador jugó bien. Okay, no player played well. Okay, summarizing it all, we have demonstrative adjectives este, esta, estos, estas. For this and this, we have ese, esa, aquel, aquella. For that, we have esos, esas, aquellos, aquellas. For those. Remember that in Spanish, you will have to make some changes. Always will have to make some changes to make all the words in the sentence match. Then we have that the demonstrative adjectives also work as pronouns. For example, este es mi carro. This is my car. Esas son mis casas. Those are my houses. Then we studied the possessive adjectives. We have mi casa, tu casa, su casa, nuestra casa, su casa at the end, which it applies to ustedes and ellos. Then we talked a little bit about adjectives in general. We have, for example, we use them to talk about nationality and color, but we use them for a lot of things. And finally, we discovered that we have to shorten some adjectives if they end with the letter O, and depending on the position you put them. Okay, in the next class, we'll learn how to do more or less the same, but not to modify adjectives, to modify nouns, but to modify verbs. Okay, so in the next class, we will be studying the adverbs. Thank you for taking our lesson, and see you later.
Do it well with Language 3.